And welcome back to my library education section. Alrighty, we'll get started here. So this is a textbook. Principles of Language Learning and Teaching. I don't really remember where I bought this. I think I've actually got it out of a department store, like for cheap. It's not a book that I had for university or anything like that. This is 07. It was cheap, and I didn't have a language learning book, so I picked it up. So that's about it. Maybe I'll take a look at the table of contents here in case there's something interesting to comment on. Language learning and teaching. First, language acquisition. They say that learning a second language is important. Research suggests. I shouldn't say. They say. Who the hell's they? Research suggests that learning a second language is beneficial, not only to have a second language, if your child chooses to pursue it, but also just for the brain as well, thinking in two different languages or having the capacity to age and acquisition. So that's probably what it's about. The significance of accent. There's a key time for that one. Human learning, styles and strategies. Okay. Toward a theory of second language acquisition. So there's a bunch of different ones here. Yeah, consider that process. Learning a language and then somehow, consider going to an entirely different planet where people have different customs and way different customs, and not even people. They're like giant grasshoppers. And how would you differentiate between two different languages? You've never heard of you've heard of neither of them before. So now consider yourself a baby. You're born, and you're hearing these weird noises. And how do you come to terms that, oh, this one's a language, and this one is just a car horn, and this one is just, the TV or whatever turning on, or how do you differentiate between language noises and other noises? And then if you now are learning one language, how do you then differentiate that between a second language? Let's say your dad speaks a second language and your mother speaks another language. That's all part of the study of language learning. Okay, here's another sort of textbook. The reflective roles of the classroom teacher. So let's see what's in here, if I remember. So all kinds of roles for teachers: organizer role, motivator role, manager role, innovator role, counselor role, the ethicist, the professional. These are the many hats that are worn by a teacher. The political role. Well, if you're in a union, then that's political. And the legal role. So this is, I guess, just speaks to the complexity of the space of being a teacher in a classroom. So there's all kinds of things. I actually have not. I picked this up from a bookstore as well. I haven't went through this. I have not gone through this in detail. So. Okay, how about a less textbooky book? Here's one. Oh, this is a great one for education. Emile by Jean-Jacques Rouseau. So he was a French, I don't know if you call him a philosopher, probably not. French theorist, I don't know. But anyways, he wrote about all kinds of things. He wrote about politics as well, but I think he's most noted for Emile, which is his kind of his education philosophy. But this particular book, I like the cover, by the way, but this particular book also has his essay on Julie, which is his education philosophy for girls, which is a little bit different. So I was actually shocked. I hadn't finished this yet when I found it in a box. But when I was up doing my master's, I did read Emile from another book. Then I guess I ordered this one later. But yeah, I haven't finished it yet. But a lot of my assumptions of of learning and education come from Rouseau, the nativist perspective. So he's also the one who mentions the lies and chains quote. Man is born free, and everywhere he lies in chains. I think that's it. So he's that guy too. Yeah, he wrote The Social Contract. Anyways, yeah, I like Rouseau, like most of Rousseau's stuff. So, all right, I guess I'll do this one here. So, Eager to Learn. So this is a book, so I guess for the public about education. It's helping children become motivated and love learning. I do have a few notes on this one. Actually, pretty much all the books you're going to see in this section I have notes on, unless it's a textbook. So yeah, so it's something I can do more in depth if someone's interested. So this one, I'm trying to remember what I got out of this one. It wasn't very much because it's all very broad. It's all very general. Let me see, just look at the contents here. Oh, I remember now. This particular book is basically a book for parents to help their kid through school. It doesn't do very much in being critical, so it's kind of, not exactly what I'm looking for, but anyways, it's not my favorite kinds of books, that's for sure. So, anyways. Okay, here's a textbook I'll just get through. So, teaching secondary school science, so that's something I am trained for, which is why I have this. I bought this for Teachers College, for teaching science. So, yeah, I don't know if this is really going to talk about this. So, anyways, my main focus, my main background is chemistry, but then I also did a few physics courses. So. Okay, here's another one. You may have heard of Marva Collins, maybe not, but she is a semi-famous educator in the United States. So, Ordinary Children, Extraordinary Teachers. So this is a pretty good book, actually. It's a very, very well written. She actually quotes Ayn Rand in here, which I was surprised. You don't see that. You don't see Rand very often. You don't even see her talked about in academic circles. You know what? Strangely, you don't even see her talked about in feminist circles. You would think that feminism would love instances of women, especially historically, being not productive, not famous, being like standing out and being doing well in a certain field, like shadowing like their male counterparts or whatever. You think Ayn Rand would be a huge example. Another thing, Margaret Thatcher, Prime Minister of England. You would think they would talk about them, but more and more it's a political thing, as I mentioned in another one of the videos. But anyways, this is a pretty good book. Little caveats in this one, and I guess interesting titles too. So she also, I guess, is. Oh, I should read this section here because this is actually not read it, but just mention it. She mentions the capricos, which is Spanish for child buyers. It's actually really neat. Let me just find that here. It's actually from Ayn Rand too, although I don't know the source. The caprichos, or comprachicos. And she talks about the comprachicos today are educators in modernity. They put a child into a mold. They create the herd instinct mentality. They ink blot, measure, test, and stenine until the child finds that finding the real self becomes an elusive process. Today's stealing of the child is done in the open. So that kind of stuff is pretty interesting to read. So these are the kind of books that I usually dabble in. So if you haven't guessed yet, I'm critical of the education system, so that's what my research is as well. So here's an unlikely book for me to have. The Feminist Classroom. I think I picked it up from a used bookstore or something. I did read it, and you probably won't be surprised, but I got very little out of it. It's mainly focused on gender roles and how gender is differentiated in instruction, and I would certainly agree that it shouldn't be. I certainly agree that it is kind of out of a historical way of teaching and historical assumptions about male and female that those differences come out, such as statistics of boys answer more questions than girls in classrooms, math being a stronger suit for boys than girls, that kind of stuff. So this book does mention those things, and of course wants to mitigate those differences. So yeah, I guess I perhaps already that perspective is not new to me, so that wasn't a problem reading this at all. So yeah. So okay, so if you remember from I guess it was the miscellaneous book, or yeah, library. So this is the other Neil Postman book I have, The End of Education, Redefining the Value of School. So this is not, I originally thought, I read this book a few years ago, I originally thought this book was about the actual end of education, as in education is going to end or cease to exist. But it's actually about the purpose of education, the end or the ends of education. So what is the end? What is the end of, or what is the goal of education? So it's a pretty interesting book. Neil Postman is a pretty good, I guess he's pretty much a critic of a lot of things, including that other book that was a critic of entertainment and media. So he says here that the education system, its failure to supply students with a transcendent unifying narrative like those that inspired earlier generations. Today's schools promote the false gods of economic utility, consumerism, technology, or ethnic separatism and resentment. So yeah, I do have notes on this book, I think. So yeah, want to know more? Let me know. All right, this book I picked up recently because it's actually something I'm researching and right now, I guess. Got it for $1. $1. That's from Mr. Cropper. The Limits and Possibilities of Schooling. An Introduction to the Sociology of Education, 3rd edition. I don't know what the year is here. I like the title. The Limits and Possibilities of Schooling. Now, when you say the word schooling, that usually brings a hair up on the back of academics, because schooling is somewhat the slang. The word implies, or the word is in general understood to mean you're critical of education. Kids aren't in school to be educated. They're in schooling. They're being programmed with behaviors and socialization and stuff like that. So that's what this book is about. Sociological approach to schooling. Theories of schooling and society, the functional and conflict paradigms. Explanations of the expansion of schooling. Schooling and equality of opportunity. Explaining unequal achievement, school quality, and the IQ controversy. Do schools reinforce inequality? What schools teach? Problems of cultural transmission. Schools as organizations, problems of order, control, and motivation. So yeah, that's going to be something I'll probably look through fairly soon. Okay, here's another one I picked up recently. A Personal Approach to Teaching, Beliefs That Make a Difference by Combs, C-O-M-B-S, 1982. So this is sort of aligns with my assumptions in education. Personal approach to teaching. So I think that I basically think that the educational system or bureaucracy or organization or even institution is in the most basic sense, a negative on child's education. But it is the personal and the humanness of teaching that actually keeps it running. So without humanity as teachers, or people as teachers that care about these kids, that schools would have long been destroyed. So what's keeping them up is people, and not in the literal sense. You need to think more about what I'm saying. It's about people caring about what they're doing in their teaching, and that teaching is not a career. It's not a job in the sense that I go to work and then I get paid. There's an element of, and this is a historical element, there's a historical element of passing information and inspiring young people. There you go. Okay, so here is a book on Montessori, the science behind the genius. So this, I'm very familiar with Montessori. I have a few PDFs on Montessori. I actually have read the spontaneous activity. There's the Montessori method, which is her basically instructional guide of the Montessori school. There's the spontaneous activity. There's another one I've read, but I can't remember now what it's called. I have annotations for them. But anyways, I wanted a modern day Montessori book that actually has citations and references and showing that it has evidence that it works, or that it has evidence that it causes certain proficiencies. And so I found one. I got it off Amazon about a year ago or so. And it's the updated edition, so it's even better. But yeah, I have not read this cover to cover. I flipped through it for sure. This is 2005, 2007. So this is a great reference material for me. Okay, how about this one? This is an old book. The Real Academic Community and the Rational Alternative. This is by Thomas L. Johnson, 1980. So I didn't finish the book, which I was surprised I didn't, because I picked this book up because I thought it says here, schools, colleges, and universities are extremely detrimental places for students to be. Present-day institutions of learning operate in such a way that some degree of psychological, mental, and sometimes physical harm is inevitably inflicted on all those who are involved. Friction, tension, anxiety, hypocrisy, fear, and often hatred are those conditions or emotions that permeate the scholastic institutions that society has established, and in which it has placed its most sensitive and vulnerable creatures, the children and youth. So that is a pretty big slap to school, which is pretty much why I picked it up. But like I said, I'm surprised I didn't finish it. I should finish it. But it says the final chapter is the Declaration of Educational Independence. So anyways, I remember picking this up off of Amazon because I thought it was critical of university professors stuff. So anyways, it includes that. So, but yeah, that's critical, right? Very critical. Okay, so this book, Frank McCourt, I'm pretty sure that's how it's pronounced. This is actually from when I was doing a master's, a book I had to buy, or a book I should say a book I chose to buy. I usually don't buy books. I did an entire master's and I bought 4 books like this. Sahara Special was 1. This is 2. The Lolita and Turan was 3, and there's another one. I actually don't have it in the pile. I actually put it in a bag and I'm going to dump it at a bookstore because I don't want it anymore. It was just a kindergarten. It was like a grade 3 book that we had to read and do an essay on. It was called I Got a D in Salami by I don't know I can't remember his real name, but it's the Fonz. Henry Winkler, I think that's it. It's by him. He's a kid's author now, author of children's books. Anyways, yeah, I did a master's with 4 books like this, like $20 books. I didn't buy any textbooks. Okay, Frank McCourt, he's an Irish teacher, or he was born in Ireland. He moved to the United States and taught there, and it's actually a really neat, down-to-earth, raw book about teaching in tough schools. So he has no problems with swearing in this book. It's very honest. It's a very honest. I don't want to say unedited, but it is. It's a refreshing look at real life, so to speak, in the teaching world sometimes. So this is a great book, a great memoir and stories from Frank McCourt. So he taught in Brooklyn, New York. He's an Irish immigrant. Grew up in Limerick, Ireland. And yeah, yep. I guess it won a Pulitzer Prize or something. Oh, never mind. No, another book he read. The other book he read won a Pulitzer Prize. Okay, here is a book, Free at Last, the Sudburyvalley School. So this is a book about a school in, I think it's Massachusetts. Yes, Framingham, Massachusetts. There's a school there called the Sudburyvalley School, and it is a school that is voluntary and does not have a curriculum. And it functions as pretty much an open access, I guess a school, although school is such a dirty word nowadays, isn't it? And especially for kind of the critical eye I take on it. It's an open access environment in which kids are there voluntarily, and they have their own schedules. They choose what they want to do. There are classes that are put on, but they're certainly not like the traditional desks in a row craziness. They are informal. There is sort of a democratic voting that goes on in the school. Children, I think at the age of 6, I think you can start coming to the school. A child who is age 6 gets 1 vote. A teacher gets 1 vote. The principal gets 1 vote, or administrator, or whatever they call themselves. I think they're all teachers, though. There's no administrators. That's all they do. They're all teachers, and some of them have different roles. Students and teachers vote on hiring or firing teachers. So it is a pretty unique school in the United States. So I had to pick up a book on that. So this book talks about the school. Oh, did I not finish it? I guess I'm halfway through it. That's weird. I wonder why I put it down. So this book talks about the school. And I was going to say, it's not, there's another book I think that is a collection of student journals and writings about being in school, but this isn't it. This is about it's about the school. It's about the school. So yeah. So it's really interesting. Really interesting. Well, for me, I guess. Somewhat of an experiment, right? But it's been running for a while now. I think it's been running for 20 years or so. This is just a quick one. 5 easy lessons, strategies for teaching physics. Nothing really to say about that one. Got a couple left here. Or I guess I'll do this one first. Here's another one, teaching physics. Yay. And here's, I think, my last education book that I own. So, Montessori, John Dewey, and Capitalism. Educational theory for a free market in education. That's why I picked this up. So pretty much people assume that, oh, the government has to provide schooling. How would the poor be educated? And questions like that. Well, I would ask if the poor are being educated, and if who is being educated. It's funny, the one of the main reasons, other than the initial onset of schooling being somewhat the wanting to educate the labor force, also wanting to educate a diverse immigrant population, such as who immigrated to the United States and Canada. This, all of that aside, education or compulsory public education or state education, the reasonings for its onset, it's also like one of the reasons is also, well, everyone has a right to education, and so therefore if all the schools are private and you have to pay money to get there, pay tuition, then the poor won't be educated and all of that stuff. And yet, so even though we have this system where everyone has access to a public education, a public funded education, kids who are born of parents who are far wealthier, they still will go to a private school and pay taxes, and then they pay even more money, and go to an even better school, a private school, such as a school that offers an international diploma. So it just seems like the parallels are so similar. We have a circumstance in which in the past where a lot of the social classes were maintained based on your wealth and your productivity, as well as, of course, the influence of nobility and bloodline, right? But then nowadays, we don't want to do away with that. We need to have public education. Still, the differences in class are maintained because the rich don't they don't bother with the public schools. They will still step up and go. So I think that it just seems like it's the same. That little has changed in that regard in terms of disquality of opportunity, let's say, for different schools. So, anyways. So yeah, the free market in education, that is something that I sort of dabble with, but it's not my particular interest at this time. But in terms of accountability and quality, the business world, everyone knows that the private sector is far more efficient and far more accountable to customers than the public sector. That is guaranteed. Is indisputable. There's so many examples. I think the often quoted difference is that government is 1/3 more wasteful than the private sector. Everything else equal, like making cars or making pencils. If the government did it, it would be 1/3 more costly or 1/3 less efficient, let's say. Anyway, so yeah, that's by Jerry Kirkpatrick. He actually has a blog which I visited, so interesting blog. Okay, that is it for my books that I own on education. In terms of me using those for my research is a little bit, like there's so much, as I've said before with the psychology books, you can get all kinds of, like all the new stuff is online, so there's not a lot of stuff you need with books, but I still read all kinds of library books, which you are about to see. So next video, yeah, this one's been going on for a little while now, 30 minutes. So the next video I will do the books that I have in my hands right now, and from the library right now. So pretty much the books you've seen in this video, for the most part, maybe half. Well, maybe half of the ones I just did. And then I guess I was gonna say I have annotations for these, but I most of them I don't. When I'm done with the book, I take it back. So, but I do have all kinds of annotations for other stuff. So perhaps if there's something in education you want to know more about, a topic will be better than a book. But I have read some of these movies, so all right. So I will get to that one. So next video will be stuff I have from the library. So current books I'm reading.